Hello everyone. Today let's talk about one misconception about shooting portrait on location using strobe light. Okay, so this misconception is that many people believe that you always need to use a large light source to capture beautiful photos. Yeah, bigger light source is softer, and softer always means prettier, more beautiful. So actually using smaller modifier when you're shooting on location make a lot more sense, and this is why. So first thing is a smaller modifier, they're lighter. When shooting on location, you more likely to move around many different spots. Either you're shooting on the street, you probably have to walk 4 or 5 blocks, or you're shooting over a park, beach, you probably have to move constantly between the shade or right by the water or on top of a rock or something, or a log, right? So you need to constantly moving. So smaller modifier definitely make your life a lot easier. And because they're lighter, you don't need to invest a huge heavy C stand, or even every time you shoot you have to find an assistant to help you. So lightweight actually make a lot more sense. So the second thing is a smaller modifier, they're gonna catch they're not gonna likely to catch a lot of wind, so it's very less likely it's gonna tip over. I used to shoot with Profoto B1 with large modifier, and I dropped that light twice. Eventually I realized I either always have to make sure I have somebody to help me to hold the light, or I just shoot with my B2. And up I shot with Profoto B2 a lot more often, simply because of that reason. Most time I'm work by myself, just me and model, or sometimes me and model and makeup artist. So when we're on the field, I'm more like the stuff is just like I can just leave there. I don't have to worry about it gonna fall over or anything. So for that reason, smaller modifier just make my life so much easier. Then the next one. That one is very interesting, it's very important. So lots of people, they ask me, they're saying, okay, so your Profoto B2 is only 250 watt second. So how can you use that light to compete with the sun? Let me tell you this, you can absolutely compete with the sun with Profoto B2 250 watt second. The question is actually, it depends on what modifier you're gonna put on it. Larger modifier, not so much. Smaller modifier, absolutely. So July I was in California, and we were shooting like during the midday. It was absolutely the brightest time of the day, and the sun is from like the worst angle you can imagine. And we were shooting right under the sun, and we are using the Profoto B2 to compete with the sun, and we have no problem. And I can tell you this, I barely shoot more than half a power. Is because I use a smaller modifier. Smaller modifier just make your light more concentrated. So for that reason, like your light is very, very efficient, and so we're exactly where you want it to be. So for that case, you have no problem to compete with sun or any bright light source. The smaller modifier has another huge advantage over the big modifier. That's probably the most important thing for me. Is smaller modifier actually help you to protect the shadows. Talking about the shadow, there's probably people think, okay, shadow is our enemy. It's like, oh, we always have to deal with the shadow, or like they're too dark, they're not enough information over there, too much noise and stuff like that. But actually the shadow is our best friend. It depends on how you use it. The shadow is the most powerful way to define the shape. So we taking photography as a 2D media, but we really want every photo look more 3D. So for that reason, we need our subject to be more stand out. So we need to give our subject shape. To give them shape, you need to give the shadow so people can see the shape. But large modifier have this issue. It's like, especially when you put the modifier too close to your subject, and also the angle is not the right angle. And I saw many people doing that because people think, oh, okay, large modifier gonna give me soft light, so I gotta have better result. You're right on that part, but if you put on the wrong angle, and then you kill these shadows. So once you kill the shadows, the shape is gone, right? So, but sometimes you probably, because your space is limited, or for some reason you have to work at a certain angle, but the angle will absolutely kill all the shadows. So what you're gonna do, put a smaller modifier over there. Then the smaller modifier will protect the shadow. So for example, if my light source, let's say, is right here, if I put a large octabox just right here, like the shadow or this shadow on my cheek will be totally killed because the light source is too large, right? But what if I change to a beauty dish over there? So then, because I'm a little bit facing away from the light source, the shadow over here is protected. And because the shadow's there, so you have the shape, you have the toning, whatever, right? So for that reason, smaller modifier is actually really, really powerful to show the shape of your subject. So these are why I think a smaller modifier a very, very powerful tool when you're shooting outside. I'd highly recommend you to give it a try next time when you're shooting outside, and then leave a comment and give me some feedback if you have any questions. Okay, that's it. Thanks.